Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In East Africa, good morning in Southern Africa. Welcome to this edition of Distinct Talks, where we shall be talking Zimbabwe, the state of the nation after Mugabe. And this session is powered by the Christian Democratic International Center, which is a party foundation based in Stockholm, doing work in Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Eastern Africa. And today's conversation, we are honored to be hosting Mr. Tinashe Chirape, who is a youth activist, a democracy and governance activist, a blogger, a citizen journalist, who is very active in the politics and governance processes within Zimbabwe. And he has had a wide experience of working with youth groups, including the Swedish National Council of Youth Organizations, and organizations in Belarus and parts of Eastern Europe. So we are very honored today to be hosting Mr. Tinashe, whom I'm shortly going to welcome to this conversation as we try to dissect the state of the nation in Zimbabwe. Welcome, Mr. Tinashe.
Thank you, Emmy, for having me on Distinct Talks. It is an honor to be here today, and we're looking forward to debate and discuss the state of Zimbabwe after Robert Mugabe.
No, we're very honored that you've been able to spare time to have this conversation with us as we talk about the state of the nation of Zimbabwe after Robert Mugabe. I know that you're an avid follower and activist in your own right within Zimbabwe, in your work with young people, but also in different governance processes. So in way of introduction and contextualizing our conversation, this is what I would like to first of all say, then I can bring you in to give us the state of the nation. Of course, Robert Mugabe was forced out of power in November 2017 after 37 years in power. For some, he remains a hero who fought for and brought independence and an end to minority rule in Zimbabwe. And for others, an African dictator who crippled the economy of Zimbabwe, a country once dubbed the food basket of the South. And of course, his departure saw the coming in of President Emerson Mnangagwa. Now, recently at his funeral, when President Comrade Robert Mugabe passed on, I just wanted to read a tweet that came from Honorable President Emerson Mnangagwa and one that came from President Kenyatta Uhuru of Kenya. President Emerson Mnangagwa announced the passing of Comrade Robert Mugabe in a tweet in which he wrote, "Mugabe was an icon of liberation, a Pan-Africanist who dedicated his life to the emancipation and the empowerment of his people. His contribution to the history of our nation and continent will never be forgotten." And then President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya tweeted and said, "Mr. Mugabe had played a major role in shaping the interests of the African continent and was a man of courage who was never afraid to fight for what he believed in, even when it was not popular." Now, with the fall of Mugabe, the regional bloc, the international community gave Mnangagwa a free pass when they could have challenged or condemned the coup. All this pointed to the fact that people in Zimbabwe were tired and also just wanted somebody different after Mugabe had been in power for 37 years. So, as we talk right now, President Emerson Mnangagwa, the former vice president, the former confidant of Robert Mugabe, is in charge. And I just wanted to get it from you because as we talk right now, I know that members of the July 31st movement have been arrested for staging a peaceful demonstration, including journalists. In the preparation for the July 31st movement, it seemed like people were uncharacteristically determined to be part of the protest amidst a deadly COVID-19 pandemic. And people are not unwavering, but it also seems like the current leadership has put out all the instruments of coercion across the streets of Harare and other cities where these demonstrations were going to happen. Mr. Tinashe, what is the state of Zimbabwe now? And what were your expectations when President Emerson Mnangagwa took power?
Thank you for the question. When we look at the situation in 2017, in November, where there was a coup, no coup, or whatever, that period would have come to be defined by a number of school of thoughts. But it's true, people were tired of Mugabe. It's true, people wanted change, but maybe not what they are seeing today. But during that period, you find many of us who are not informed of the securities of the nation thought and there was a school of thought that was circulating in Zimbabwe saying we are going to have a national transition authority after Mugabe that will run up towards the 2018 elections. Most of us quickly jumped in support of getting Mugabe, ousting Mugabe, whether it was legal or illegal is a question of another day. But that one gave most of the people the hope and even the desire of having a different president for the first time for me in my entire life. You see, I had known Mugabe as the president since birth. So looking at the history of other nations, our neighbor South Africa having about 4 or 5 presidents by now, it was something that we would also want. And people thought if someone stayed too much, it would be difficult to remove. So and we were not sure if his term coming to end of 2018, whether Mugabe would say, it's okay, I'm retiring from politics, or you amend the constitution so that you go on further. So people really jumped to the opportunity just to have Mugabe out. And reading from a narrative called 2 weeks in November, which was written trying to describe the situation, how it all happened. You find that Emerson Mnangagwa was running away. He took asylum in South Africa, went via Mozambique and stuff. And while that was happening and the army was doing what they were doing, there is a lot where people thought would change Zimbabwe. And I remember we had when Mnangagwa was inaugurated, we had the support of the British ambassador who was in Zimbabwe back then. She gave us this big long rope. We would see ourselves going back to the Commonwealth. We would see ourselves going back into the international community. We were seeing ourselves living a new life different from the First Republic under Robert Mugabe. We thought we were going to see a life where no person would be arrested for exercising constitutional rights, no person would be abducted. We thought we would go to a place where freedom of expression is guaranteed, especially after the expression. So I think most of us went in support with our flags. We went to the Capitol in celebration, in showing that we want you, Mr. Robert Mugabe, to actually resign. We did it in good faith that we thought the army was simply there to protect Mugabe from us being violent and stuff. We thought the army was not going to be in the politics world. We thought the army was the army doing its intended job as in terms of the ethos and values of the liberation struggle, that the army would not engage in civilian issues, but will do so when need arises. So that was the moment when we supported, I think, mostly everyone except the platform which was under the banner G40, which was for Mugabe to remain in power. So it, the state of Zimbabwe currently, in terms of economic side, it has dropped worse than what it was in 2017. The rate back then, they were forcing it to be at $1 as to one bond. The black market back then was around $50 bond to $1. Right now, they themselves are putting $1 to 72 RTGS or bond in dollars. The black market is putting it at about 100. So economically, we have dropped. Then, in terms of fundamental human rights, I think we are now moving in a circle. We started with violence in 1985 under Mugabe, Kukura Wundi. We went in 2008 electoral violence. Then it subdued. It seemed we are now tolerant of the politics. No one cared which party you are coming from. They would enjoy each other. But of late, is towards 31 July 2020, we are back to square one, where those of that party would go on social media with knives and intimidating those of the other party. We have got those coming from the state security. We thought now they are called state services, but we realized no, they are still forces because they are still implementing force. We are now moving generally in a circle where we thought we were going ahead to a civilized nation, but we are slowly falling back to what we were in 2008, 1985. So in terms of our social cultural fiber, it's deteriorating. The confidence in ourselves is deteriorating. The health sector is deteriorating, and what hasn't changed is corruption. Has been there. We call them gates, Asia gate, COVID gate, Idai gate. Anything that comes, it comes with a gate. Every year we've got a gate of corruption, corruption. And what we have noted is there is the catch and release for corrupt cases where one is accused of corruption. They catch you, you are arrested, then you are given bail, then the story dies. No one has been convicted yet of corruption. So that's the state which we are, which is more of heavily captured state, where anybody else thinks that the governing is governing otherwise, then that person is a terrorist, is trying to overthrow a government. And you'll be shocked that just a sentence on Twitter can make you a terrorist. A sentence on Twitter can make you have the capacity to overthrow people with AK-47. So it's out to where we are, possibly from where we were. Yes.
Tinashe, I mean,
yes.
Seeing what happened in Gambia. I mean, President Barrow came with the same promises and broke them, and a lot of other African countries. Are you people surprised? Are you surprised that President Emerson Mnangagwa has moved back on some of his promises, on his word, and the things? Are you even surprised that this is happening in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, it's a bit tricky because when someone says I'm born again and the voice of the people is the voice of God, you assume there is change knocking sense somewhere there. Then, but following from the practice, now we see that is what they are. You cannot change a cow into a zebra by painting it into stripes. It will remain a cow. It will never run like a zebra, walk like a zebra, or sound like a zebra. So I think we need to understand that we wanted him to change. We wanted them to change. Most people in Zimbabwe, for other reasons, they really don't care who is really running the country or what. They care about the basic stuff that they need. So when they don't get that, we are pushing them elsewhere. I remember people on Twitter saying, but in the 1980s, no one was speaking of these budgets. They would do their budget. No one was even concerned how much the budget is. But now, because we are hungry at home, if there is a budget, everyone is glued on TV trying to see which money is allocated where. So questions of accountability becomes bigger when we are more hungry. So we thought they would change, but yeah, looking for cases like Sudan, I think their cases, we will look at the level of violence and stuff, and we thought maybe through the open for business mantra, how Mnangagwa was going with his scarf all over the world, selling the country, would pose up a better picture for himself and for the country. But when he came back, asking further that there is no food in the house became a problem. That's when we realized we believed something that was not true. So that's the biggest.
Tinashe, I'll come back in a little
Yes.
while to talk a little bit about some of these corruption scandals, but I'm interested. Unemployment levels in Zimbabwe. I see statistics that say 80%. I also know that the government has been giving its own statistics of 25% unemployment levels, but I also know that government has redefined what unemployment and employment means. What is the exact situation when it comes to unemployment in Zimbabwe right now after Mugabe?
Yeah, after Mugabe, Mugabe had promised 2 million jobs when he was in his term. His running mate was Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa took over. Those jobs never came up. 2018 elections, Mnangagwa promised jobs. Apparently, more companies have closed in the course of the economic collapse. The rate of unemployment that is defined by Oxford is not what we define in our National Statistics Office. Our National Statistics Office defines employment as any work that retains and wage payment. So if someone is being paid for anything, they define it as employment. For them, they put our unemployment rate around 25%. They will further structure it as formal employment, informal employment. Then they will say most of the people are in informal employment. But when we look at employment from an economic perspective, it should be something that the government should tax from the wage or from the pay or the money that you are given for the work that you have done. Anything other than that, for me per se, is not work that we can call someone is employed. If we are not going to get tax from that salary, if we're not going to pay tax, we are not getting, for example, Zimbabwe AIDS levy tax and those other taxes. If we are not getting tax from those guys that we call employed, they are not employed in real terms. The reality is 85% of us Zimbabweans are not employed. The much that we can say is they are hustling in the informal sector, which is not recognized in most aspects of, let's say, registration of their companies, registration of what they do, whether they are paying their taxes. No, they are not. So we cannot go and say they are employed. I would say we are strictly affected, and we are 85% unemployed, and the numbers are increasing yearly, as we have about 13,000 graduates from universities only popping in at the end of each year. So
Tinashe,
our unemployment is increasing.
Yes. Tinashe, how is government funding its activities? If you have a population of 85% who are unemployed, where are they getting the resources to be able to keep afloat, to pay the security apparatus and make sure certain services are available?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I would quote the chairperson of the parliamentary committee, which will enlighten you how we are operating. In one of their meetings in parliament, they asked how come Zimbabwe had an Command Agriculture Fund of $4 billion against an economy of less than 4 billion. The budget of the nation was less than 4 billion, but it was around 4 billion, but the Command Agriculture got 4 billion. So you are not sure where the money is coming from, how it's the level of transparency. Really, it's very hidden, because the money that we need to get us rolling is US dollars. The money we have cannot be traded with any other nation. So the money which is circulating in Zimbabwe right now is our papers. It's just mere papers and digits in our accounts. Because I cannot send you the money in Uganda. I cannot send the money to someone in South Africa. I need a foreign currency account, what they call nostro account, to do that, which is easy and has US dollars. So how we are operating, I think we are going back to what we call the gonomics during the days of Gideon Gono, who was the governor around 2008, where we managed to pay some of our loans from IMF, but when we didn't have US dollars circulating in our country. So for me, and understanding that we are farmers that sold currently their tobacco, which was close to 200 something million. We have got gold mines that are selling their ores to the government, the Reserve Bank. We have got platinum, which is being mined. We have got diamonds, which is being mined. Then these are being exported. That's where the government then thinks which priority should they focus on. But
all
fair and fair, how we are running is Yes.
Doesn't all this distort the gross domestic product statistics as they are supposed to be? Because then how does this definition then affect what the true GDP statistics are in Zimbabwe? Because it seems like the numbers don't match. The transparency, as you say, is very low, and then the country is not aware of how the government is actually getting resources to run itself.
Yeah, I think what happens is, if we had independent GDP indicators, you would find they would be different from what the government would put. The challenge we have is the government would come up with their GDP, then transmit it to the UN representative. It becomes a report that goes to the international report. Then we have got this GDP of theirs, right? Information in Zimbabwe is, especially bad information, is not given free. You won't find much by the government. They would do all to make it look closer to other African states. By all means, if
Tinashe,
we had a great GDP, yes.
No, continue.
If we have got a good GDP, I think the majority of people who are in the United Kingdom, who are in South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, these Zimbabweans really want to be home. But being home means sacrificing their lives and what they could do for their children in terms of investments and stuff in an economy that is not working. So I personally would not rely much on our definitions, especially government statistics. I rather focus more on individual statistics, where we are sure that there is no tampering of data, and not make it look. I'll give an example. Before the outbreak of HIV, they would stifle. It's something synonymous with African. They will stifle the states. Thabo Mbeki in South Africa actually also went on saying HIV and AIDS is not a pandemic in South Africa, while these people were dying. And so these are the issues that we Africans would go on to do, our African leaders would go on to do, and stifle all real statistics and make sure like how they have redefined employment. It's an end-off to say someone who goes and fetch firewood and sell it on a street, on the roadside, is employed. But for them, they would say, yeah, they are employed because they are making money. So now we have got an informal sector, which
Tinashe,
yes.
I'll have another day where we focus on the economics of Zimbabwe, but just a little bit for the understanding of people that are following this conversation. I know that there's been a 1.4 billion central bank debt, a loan that was turned into grants by an act of parliament. I just wanted you to give us a little bit about this scandal so that people get an understanding of what this was all about. I know that $1.4 billion was given out as loans to public servants and different people within the governments and government apparatuses, but somehow Parliament turned this loan into a grant through an act in one of the sittings. What was this about?
Yeah, the current one, which is being speaked about, is a 200 and something million grant loan facility that was done in 2007, 2008, agricultural period, it is called the Farm Mechanization Scheme. It gave the beneficiaries loan money, tractors, equipment relating to agriculture. So there have been a cry for the beneficiaries to pay back the money around 2013. Then in 2015, the parliament sat and came up with a bill which moved the loans into grants. From the discussions and the comments that are coming from some of the beneficiaries, like the former Minister of Information, Jonathan Moyo, you find that he said, we were not asked to pay back the money. But when they were given the loans, they were not asked by the RBZ to pay back. They come up with I remember they would say it is for the equipment, it needs to be re-evaluated, blah, 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 blah. Things that were not making sense. But on forward, in 2015, they managed to turn that loan into a grant where citizens, the general public, are going to pay for the grant. So this has come out through the likes of Magaisa, UK-based activist, who then brought the whole list of the beneficiaries and the amount of money they got, ranging from between $10,000 to $500,000 per individual. In some cases, you will find the father, the wife, the son, the daughter within the list getting a family scooping close to $2 million. And then they say that money was being given for us to be good farmers in the farms. But now it's for us who are not beneficiaries in any kind to the money to chip in and pay it back, the money. So that's one of the scandals that is running around and is threatful. The biggest not to take home on this scandal is beneficiaries. We have got politicians who are beneficiaries. This means we have got members of the cabinet who are beneficiaries. We have got members of the parliament who are beneficiaries. Then we have got members of the judiciary who are beneficiaries. Then we've got members of the security services who are beneficiaries. And then, last but not least, shockingly, religious leaders are beneficiaries to the money. So you find all these people are now in this circle where they need to protect each other. When the politician fails, the security service will come in and deal with you, and they will let the judiciary to finalize your predicament. Then the church will come in and console you. No, it's the work of God. Leave them alone. When it's just like a company of friends. So we are in a situation where we need to understand that that's how the grants came out. Unfortunately or unfortunately, the members of the opposition were being quoted by the beneficiaries that they also benefited, but the list that came out selected some and left the members of the opposition. And we as citizens, we want to know those members of opposition that benefited from that scheme. Up to date, they haven't produced the full list, and we still want the real list with the RBZ letterhead and the stamp. We show blah 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 got this, blah 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 got this, blah 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 got this. But we haven't seen it, and we are looking forward.
Tinashe, so
Yes.
With all this lack of transparency from the government, what you're describing, which is almost state capture, the judiciary, the executive, and the military apparatus are all captured under this system. You're part of the civil society. What are you doing in terms of making sure that you hold the government accountable, in terms of making sure that the citizens receive what is due to them? How is that working, and what are you people doing in civil society? What spaces have you created to be able to hold government accountable?
Yeah, as civil society, our work has not been easier. It has been affected greatly, considering what it was in 2017, maybe back to 2009. The civic space is shrinking, and when it's shrinking, the three fundamentals of civic space, especially freedom of association, uh, freedom of peaceful assembly, and expression, these ones are the most ones that are being affected. And them being affected means our work is greatly being affected. Uh, and while we go on civic education, we educate people about these three fundamental human rights. And then we have got a situation where one is empowered to express themselves. For example, I would put an example of the 31 July movement. Someone, Fadzai Mahere, the spokesperson of the Movement for Democratic Alliance, had a poster which stated no to violence, no to corruption, no to mortality deaths at hospitals. Right? She got arrested. Why? They are now saying she is a terrorist trying to remove the government by simply saying no to corruption, by simply saying no to deaths at hospital, to maternal deaths at hospitals. So while at least would look at those other people who want to express themselves. In Zimbabwe, we can safely say we have got the freedom of expression. We can say what we want. But the challenge comes after saying what you want. That's when that freedom of your expression is putting you on a hotspot where people are coming at your house at 1 a.m., taking you, abducting you, beating you up. If you are not around, if you hide elsewhere, maybe your spouse will be taken, or your children, any close relatives of yours, then they are beaten up. So our work has been worse than what it was, but we soldier on. It's our responsibility. It's our rights. Keeping quiet won't make them the rights being respected. So if you would come and say, I am for this association or of this view, you are treated as a terrorist. For example, if you say there are no PPEs in hospitals, for the fact there are no PPEs in hospitals, but they will come to you and say, no, you are trying to remove a duly elected government, then the questions that we look at are big. Then when we look at accountability, I think the question of accountability is the biggest question that I've seen the response by the government on 31 July. Their response to empty streets showed that they don't want to be accountable and they don't want to be questioned. Because the July movement was initiated by the corruption that went between the drugs company and the Ministry of Health in terms of supplying PPE, right? So that tender went without being advertised. face mask, we're going for $25 US from that company. When we know face masks are going for $1 for 3 face masks. So questioning that for citizens, you found people like Opo no being incarcerated for trying to ask for good governance where accountability and transparency is critical. Then drawing it closer home in smaller towns or districts, you will find the question of accountability also comes when local authorities are hiking rates without engaging the public, engaging their residents. We have got a situation where our priorities are being lost in terms of accountability. In our budget of the nation, we didn't have the erection or the building of Mbuyane and monument statue, but we are now getting $30 million for it. Well, at least we have COVID. We build something that can be built 5 years to come and it will be there. So in terms of accountability, I would say we are doing our work, we are engaging young people to do so, we are engaging citizens to do so, but the threat is there as the government's response is not fair, is not condoned in a country that speaks to good governance.
Tinashe, and in terms of course, it's clear that you people who are working on democracy and governance are at a very high risk with the shrinking space and the fact that you people are asking for accountability. What are international organizations doing? What are embassies saying? What are all these foreign missions within Zimbabwe and Harare saying about this situation? Are they standing strong and supporting you and defending you? Are they continuing to support your efforts, financial and morally, to be able to make sure that your programs continue? Are you talking to them about the situation and seeing if they could push government to do better than what they are doing right now?
Yeah, I think and I see they are doing a great work, especially the embassies. They have spoken, released statement in the respect of human rights. They have shown solidarity by going to court cases of incarcerated people. They have even have the audience of some members of the civil society that have been arrested. For example, there is Namatai. She has been to the Canadian embassy and they have talked with the ambassador. So I think that in itself is good in terms of supporting human rights in Zimbabwe. And what happens now in the diplomatic doors behind the scenes is critical, other than the mere statements that they put across, because embassies have got more power to shake the response of the government compared to other organizations or institutions in Zimbabwe. So I think they are doing their part behind the diplomatic closed doors in trying to make sure the space isn't closing and the space is respected. But I understand we are dealing with a government that that has recently identified the US embassy ambassador as a thug. So the way our government respond and does, you never know what's coming, but what you know is bad, because
okay,
it's the last time we had such conflict was Mugabe and Christopher Dale. Because Dale did confronting Mugabe directly about issues of violence and stuff, up until Dale had to go back to America and reassign elsewhere. So I think they are doing their part well, and in terms of support, I think they are doing good. Showing up at a court hearing is triggers even the captured judiciary on giving judgments that are biased, that are not fundamentally following the facts presented. But
Okay.
of late, what we understand is the judiciary will simply postpone your case up until while you are incarcerated. So that's what's happening.
Tinashe, as we wrap up this conversation, so when Mugabe was overthrown in November 2017, you had a lot of expectations as a people, as a country, because finally there was coming, you're going to have change after 37 years. I just want, and of course you've told me right now that a lot of you are disappointed in how things have turned out. Some of your expectations were not met. What are some of the lessons other African countries should pick from Zimbabwe, especially instances where you have a president overthrown, and then you have people who are part of the same system coming over to take power? What kind of lessons and pointers do you give the rest of the continent, to the civil society and other citizens and young people, on what to expect or how to deal with the changes that come with a coup and a new government?
I think the most important one is when we change the government or the leadership, which is in current position for Zimbabwe, I would rather say having a national transitional authority that takes into consideration everyone. The issue of saying if we had a transitional national authority, we don't want the people from ZANU-PF to be part of it, would be dangerous, because we are now forming a dissident where we don't need some. We are now forcing people to think the change was for those, not for these. We want everyone to be part and parcel of it. But my lessons from Zimbabwe is let the retired generals be retired generals and retire for sure. Not that when you are retired and we now hear you are now heading the media or the Ministry of Information. I think when you assign yourself in or solemnly swear that you want to be a soldier, I think you should take that oath with you for a while and give yourself space to understand how civilians work if you are rather want to come into politics. Because our lessons is we simply had a government where the military came into political office without really understanding what really happens there. We learned at one point the doctors were fired because they were accustomed to command protocols. What I say goes, the rest don't question me. That's their lifestyle. That's how it works with the military, right? So in the civilian world, it doesn't work. Now, when we question them, like for instance, the question of accountability, they will treat it as insurgency, and you are not respecting protocol based on their training for more than 50 years in the army. So when we have got such, we need to understand that we need to move away from that. Then, if the army, like one school of thought projected, would have been part and parcel of initiating the transitional authority, it's best the army to stay away from positions within that authority. Let citizens do it, and understandably, we also need to understand our background. Also, you understand these military comrades in Zimbabwe and the people in the government of Zimbabwe were friends in the liberation movement. They fought side to side. They saw their friends died when they were together. So these situations, though we would once say they are captured, but we understand that these guys are people with a vision they had when they were in the struggle. And this is what we are seeing. So we need to understand, if we are moving from a country which is lesser people who moved or fought for independence, I think our lessons would be much different. Because currently the Zimbabwean lesson is, we have got the revolutionaries still at play, and they claim that they are the ones responsible for freeing the nation, and everyone else is simply beneficiaries of their efforts. So when we learn how we move and how we project ourselves, we need to see the stakes in terms of the security services, how they have been operating in the past. That one will help us inform us how they will operate in the future. For example, in Malawi, the army stood by the people, and their elections went well, and the issues that are now coming from them are others, which are also pointers to learn, where their savior is getting ministers and their wives as ministers. So it's a whole bunch to learn, and for Africa we still have a lot. And in terms of democracy, in terms of good governance, we need to put in a culture amongst us and amongst those that want to lead or take political positions, to initiate a life where they are tolerant of their opposition. Because in Africa, when you are in the opposition, you are a terrorist, you are a dissident, you are trying to remove the government. If you have got the opposite view, you are a terrorist. Even if it is constructive criticism, is taken as you are a dissident, you are trying to remove the government, of which some people who want ZANU-PF to forge ahead for against Zimbabwe as ZANU-PF, but they just have a different perspective. Then they are chucked out of ZANU-PF. Then there are some who doesn't want, believe me, the ideologies of that. So tolerance in Africa is missing.
Tinashe,
The ability to live with each other is missing. Then
Tinashe, I mean, you make very interesting points as a lesson for Africans that every time there's a coup, there needs to be a transitional government. It is very important that the transitional government is very inclusive and brings everyone on board, but also that the army needs to stay away from political positions, because their training does not fit within the civilian authority, where accountability is very, very essential. But we are wrapping up in 1 minute. In 1 minute, I would like you to give, what is your final word to the young people, the unemployed young people in Zimbabwe? How do they need to deal with this situation? Of course, the 31st July movement is still on. They are not going to keep quiet. What should the constructive role of young people in Zimbabwe and the rest of Africa be when it comes to dealing with governments and systems that don't seem to be working for them?
Right. But I think young people need to take advantage of, one, their demographic dividend in Africa. In Zimbabwe, we are 65% of young people aged 35 and below. So I think if young people themselves invest in their demographic dividend, they are in a position, one, to find themselves in these electoral political positions, rather than them being campaign managers, runner-dogs for these old guys who don't even want to create employment for them. That's one. then I think young people need to move away from what I would say being used as machinery for violence. But young people need to step up and define the future of their lives. It would be good for young people to come up and say, we did this, in as much as the current generation, which we are saying is failing us, did something that they did when they fought colonialism. They were young people back then. So every young person and all young people are the deciders of any country's future. So for young people, I think it's the ball is in our hands. It's either we play ball or we don't play ball. They will play it on our behalf. That's my message for young people across Africa and Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Tinashe Chirape, a blogger, a citizen journalist, runs an organization that focuses on youth participation in governance issues. It was an honor hosting you, and thank you very much for being part of this conversation, Tinashe. And I hope that our conversation has been helpful to everyone who has been watching, and to the young people across the continent. You need to take advantage of your demographic dividend, be organized in a way that pushes you to participate and be part of the process. It is not enough to be bystanders, because then ball will be played on your behalf. Thank you very much, Tinashe, and it was nice having you for this conversation.
Thank you.
That was Tinashe from Zimbabwe, a blogger, a youth activist, but also a governance practitioner who has been running programs for young people, but also following the developments in Zimbabwe. And he puts out a critical lesson for transitional governments that the army needs to stay away. You are used to orders, the rank and file orders, and the civilian life is about holding you accountable when you run government, but also very clearly what comes out of Zimbabwe. And as part of the conversations we have had in the past about Zambia and about the Gambia, there's always the African leaders who are very consistently good at not keeping their word. They tell you one thing, when they take power, they change their minds. And we are hoping that these are lessons that all of you that eventually take power will learn, that being truthful and being loyal to your word is very critical. It builds your credibility, but also creates better followers for you when you keep your word. And the conversations about Zimbabwe, some of them are very heartbreaking, knowing that after 37 years of Comrade Robert Mugabe, President Emerson Mnangagwa would be more tolerant of dissent, more tolerant of opposing opinion, but we know that activists are being arrested, journalists are being arrested for asking questions, for questioning the way the government is being run, for questioning issues of human rights and accountability. And we think that we need to move away from that kind of governance for the rest of the continent. This conversation, as usual, was powered by the Christian Democratic International Center, and it's Party Foundation that is based in Sweden, running programs in Eastern Europe, in Latin America, and East Africa. And we are very glad that you are part of this conversation, and we hope that you'll join us next Monday for another explosive conversation as we focus on issues concerning Africa, issues that help us improve our governance, but also very specifically issues that are meant to inspire young people into becoming productive parts of the process in order to participate, join politics, and be able to change the culture so that we bring more youthful people and also bring the youth agenda on the table. I was your host, Emmy Otim. Thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you a splendid afternoon.